What was the moment you knew your relationship was over? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. My ex and I were not living together, but he had the key to my place. I told him that I was going to go see my parents for the weekend, but then changed my mind last minute because I started feeling sick. I forgot to tell him and just went home after work and went to bed. I woke up around 10 p.m. to get a glass of water, and while I was in the kitchen, I heard someone fumbling at the door with the lock. I freaked out because I lived on the 17th floor, so if it was a break-in, I was f***ed. All of a sudden, he walks in, dragging a tipsy girl in behind him. I just stood there while he tried to make up some sort of excuse as to why he was there. The girl was pretty shocked too. Story 2. When after 7 years, a particularly cold conversation, and with tears in my eyes, I said, "I just want you to love me," and she said, "Well, I don't. And don't you feel pathetic for having to ask?" Edit. Thank you so much for the kind replies, everyone. It means a lot less than 3. This was 5 years ago now, and I am doing so much better. The best love is self-love. Story 3. She had picked on me for months, constantly criticizing everything. I couldn't do anything right. I tried. I kissed her ass and apologized for every single perceived wrongdoing. After months, one day I told her, calmly, "You're mean to me." She blew up. Veins came out and she did that weird growl yelling thing and told me she'd cut my throat and burn down my house. I left with my kids to my parents' house. Came back the next day, she was gone. Haven't seen her since. And strangely, my anxiety is all but gone. Story 4. 3 weeks before we broke up, she described the kind of guy she would date if we broke up. She described her coworker, and I honestly thought they had hooked up by this point. To my delight, he was a good noodle and never wanted to be more than work friends with her. When he found out she left me to be with him, he reached out and told me he was sorry for everything, even though it wasn't his fault. I told him I'm not holding anything against him, but thanked him for being a good person. Story 5. When I saw how she completely changed when her boss was around, she became much more pleasant, flirty, and amenable. That's when I realized the only reason she was dating me was in hopes it would make her boss jealous enough to leave his wife for her. Story 6. I was at my best friend's wedding. When he saw his bride walking down the aisle, he had a grin so big it looked like it could have exploded right off of his face. He was so happy to be marrying this person. And when I thought about my now ex, GF, I realized that I just didn't feel that way about her. I will say, when I married my wife, I was grinning like an idiot. Story 7. The day my mom passed away, the coroner hadn't even come for her body yet. With zero consideration on how I felt and what I was going through, my ex-fiancé thought it was a great idea and a good time to tell me he has been cheating on me for the last 6 years, and how sorry he was for it. He wasn't sorry he did it, but he's sorry because the other woman had lied to him about who she really was, and he wanted me to comfort him because he felt betrayed by her. When I promptly broke up with him, he asked, "Wait, is this really goodbye? How could you do this to me now?" Story 8. We had been long distance for a couple of months, and I actually felt relieved to be hundreds of miles away from him. He never called me or texted. It was always me who reached out. I got tired of it and started calling less and less. One day, after we hadn't spoken for a few weeks, I called him and he answered and sounded surprised to hear from me. Conversation went, "Me. Hey, it's me, him. Oh, hi. Why are you calling me? Me. No reason. Just to say hi, him. Oh, okay. Well, I was actually just doing something. Can I call you another day?" And after years of awful screaming arguments and stupid games, that's when I knew the relationship was dead. Story 9. The moment he accidentally sent me a text that was supposedly meant for someone else, making plans to hook up at his house. My only response to that was, "Okay, be safe." I added quotes because I suspected that he did this on purpose to try and get me to break up with him, expecting some sort of angry response from me. He didn't get that, although I did get an earful from him a couple weeks down the line about how he never found me attractive physically or romantically, to which I responded, okay, and never talked to him again. To this day, I will never understand why some people choose to play games rather than just be upfront. No matter, I'm now happily married to an amazing person. Story 10. He stopped talking to me 3 days into a 3-week holiday. I made the best of it. Once home, the silent treatment continued for another 3 weeks. He rolls over in bed one morning and starts talking like nothing happened. I should have ended it long before, but that was the moment I knew it was over. Story 11. I was engaged to my girlfriend of 5.5 years, 3.5 dating, 2 engaged. I noticed that out of nowhere she started acting very suspicious and more cautious of her phone around me and not wanting me to be around her when she was playing games with people on Discord, which I didn't really care about. I knew something was up when I would tell her I loved her, and to have a good day when she would leave for work and she would just kind of smile and nod. One day I was cleaning up around the house and noticed that she had left her computer open and saw some messages between her and a guy she plays games with talking about some things that I would rather not repeat. When I confronted her about it, I was gaslit and made out to be crazy. I knew then it was the beginning of the end. A year and a half later, I finally had enough evidence, and she admitted to cheating on me for a year and a half, 6 months before our wedding. I'm still not over it after a year and a half later, and I genuinely don't think I'll be able to trust the same again. Story 12. The night I really started to be honest with myself about why we were in a relationship together. It was quite toxic on both sides. Our personalities constantly clashed, in addition to our own mental health issues which fed off of each other and made it considerably worse. We both had fears of being alone, and they had a fear of abandonment. Deep down, subconsciously, we both knew we were incompatible. But instead of accepting it and ending on good terms, we constantly tried to mold each other into my perfect partner and grew steadily more frustrated with each other when it wasn't working. It really didn't help that this was a first major relationship for us both, and neither of us had good parents to teach us how healthy relationships work. Story 13. She planned a wonderful camping trip for my birthday. The first night was great. We drank wine by the fire and had a lovely time talking about all our best memories together. The next day, we went on a big day hike, and my depression kicked into high gear, for no real reason at all. At the peak of the mountain, I couldn't contain myself anymore and just broke down crying. I even left the trail, pretending my stomach didn't feel well, so she wouldn't see how sad I was for no real reason. But that night, at the campsite, she knew. I couldn't shake the funk. I wanted to leave early and just be at home again. It was too much. The depression had broken the camel's back. Story 14. When she lied and said she was too sleepy to go out to the romantic dinner we'd planned for her birthday. We planned it weeks in advance, and I'd even rented a small boat to take us out and have our dinner on. That next morning, a mutual friend posted pics on Facebook that had her in the background showing she went to a party with her friends after she said she was going to sleep. I literally broke up with her the night after I caught her. I never got the deposit back for the boat due to last-minute cancellation. Story 15. This is such a painful question. The catalyst for the breakup is a very vivid memory. I was married for a couple of years while still in my 20s. We divorced. I moved back to New York, which I'd left to be with him. When I look back at that time, I am so struck by how little I knew myself. I was frightened of feelings I didn't think I was supposed to have, truly clueless about how to move through life. It's one thing to know something intellectually. It's entirely another to be able to apply what I know to myself and my actions. I didn't know how to be honest. I'd fallen in love with my first husband. To this day, he remains one of a handful of men that I sincerely loved. We had very little in common. We're both stubborn, and neither of us knew how to communicate well. In addition, I had a slew of problems of which I wasn't even aware. We were both unhappy. I didn't know what to do. We lived very near my mother. One day, we had a fight. I can't remember about what. Then my mom called and told me not to be alarmed, but there was a chimney fire. The FD was on its way. I ran out and went over. I was in the yard with my mother and a lot of fire trucks when I saw my husband drive by. He looked. He didn't stop. That's when I knew it was over. It was broken. I was so hurt. But that he could do that said so much about how badly he was hurt. I can see that now. Then, it was an action I certainly couldn't move past. Over in a moment. We split very soon afterwards. However, this is the thing. The marriage had already fractured. I just needed an event that gave me permission to leave. A way to blame him, and not myself. Ugh, not easy to be honest now, either. I've been married to someone else for 20 years. He's been married to a woman who adores him the way he should be adored, for almost as long. We are still friendly. I am struck by how badly we humans can behave, especially to someone we love. Often I think we just can't find the strength to be clear with ourselves. So we do things to hurt the other. I guess we figure that's easier than telling the truth. I'm not the first person to say love isn't enough to have a good marriage, but it's certainly worth mentioning again, that it's really not. If anyone I knew told me they were getting married, I'd tell them to have the hard conversations now, not later. Talk about the stuff over which you might disagree. Find out if there are good solutions. If not, step back and think. Because people just don't change. Changing is the exception, not the rule. He did the best he could at the time. So did I. Time has been good to both of us, both in finding better suited mates and being able to forgive the younger versions of ourselves. I didn't want to answer this question because I in no way wanted to cast him in a bad light. I think when he drove by that day, he just was hurting too much to stop. It's how he let me know, and I am glad he did. All right, folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.